This is Rick Rule for Rule Investment Media and the Rule Classroom, sponsors of the 2025 Natural Resources Investment Symposium, held July 7 through 11 in Boca Raton, Florida, or from the comfort and convenience of your own home or office via live stream. Whether you attend the conference live or via live stream, there's a few things you need to know. The first is that we're going to give you in excess of 50 hours of valuable but concentrated programming, more than you can possibly absorb in the 4 days that we're going to give it to you over. The consequence of that is that recordings of the conference will be available for you to use for a year following the conference. Plan on using them. To get your money's worth, you have to invest your time. There's a lot of material, and it's very, very good material. The second thing is that as a consequence of a very busy schedule, we're going to interview every exhibitor and every speaker before the conference so that you have the ability to familiarize yourself with all the topics that will be discussed at the conference and reach out to the exhibitors, reach out to the company even before the conference. This will allow you to utilize your time and allocate your capital much more efficiently when the time comes for the conference. Note too that unlike any other investment conference on the planet, every single public company exhibitor at this conference is owned in my accounts. Every single exhibitor has been vetted. Sadly, as you may have heard before, there's no guarantee that because I own a stock, it goes up. But there is a guarantee that unlike every other conference on the planet, every single exhibitor on my exhibit floor has been vetted. This focus on the details of the conference allows me to make you an extraordinary offer. Whether you attend live or via live stream, should you, for any reason, believe that you have not got your money's worth, I'll give you your money back. That's right, absolutely unqualified money back guarantee. I've been making this guarantee for 30 years now, mercifully. I've had to refund less than 1/10 of 1% of the tuitions I've charged. That notwithstanding, unlike any other investment conference on the planet, you have an absolute solid gold money back guarantee. So let's get started with the interviews. Today, my guest is a returning guest, Darren Gordon from Centaurus Minerals. One more time, I own the stock. Regard that as a conflict of interest, but regard it in my own way as a compliment too. Darren, welcome to the interview process.
Rick, great to be here again.
Darren, for those people who didn't tune in last year, introduce yourselves. Tell us who you are, what you've done in the past, why you're qualified to answer the nosy questions I'm going to ask you, and how you're qualified to run Centaurus.
Yeah, look, by training, Rick, I'm a humble old bean counter, but I've been in this sort of resource investment game for probably over 30 years now. And we've been in Brazil for 15. Spent a lot of time there, made people a lot of money along the way, but we're now sort of focused on a very high quality nickel sulfide project that we are looking to bring into production in the next couple of years. So it's a very exciting time for us.
Tell us some basics about Centaurus. Tell us, as an example, the market capitalization, what your symbol is, where you trade, how people can access that information.
Yeah, we're listed on the Australian Stock Exchange. ASX code is CTM. We're also on the OTC with the CTTZF code. So that does give access into the North American markets for people that we want to talk to when we come along to your conference. We've got a market cap probably around about 180 million Australian dollars. So probably around 120 million US dollars. And I guess relative to that, we've got a project that we think is sitting very comfortably with a net present value somewhere, just shy of $1 billion. So there's a lot of value to be had in Centaurus, and we've just got to bring that to fruition.
Tell us something about the deposit. Tell us something, as much as you can, relative to Australian and American securities regulations, about the size of the deposit so far, the relative grade of the deposit, the level of advancement you have. Give us the sort of background that lets you say it's $1 billion asset.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I mean, this is an asset that we acquired off Vale about 5 years ago, and I think that in itself creates an enormous opportunity for a junior picking up a unloved asset from a major. Came with a bunch of data. We've drilled out another 250,000 meters of diamond core drilling over that period of time. We've had 3 or 4 resources, with the last one of those in August last year, and that now has us sitting at about 1.2 million tonnes of contained nickel metal in a sulfide deposit that is going to be open pittable. So I guess in metric terms, it's 138 million tonnes at 0.87% nickel. So very, very large deposit. Not too many of those around that have the combination of size and grade. And, that's what enables us to put this project into a good position from an economics perspective. We completed a feasibility study in July last year, and that is showing very favourable economics. Capital cost is very manageable at about $370 million US. But I think most importantly, operating cost is going to be in the bottom quartile. So on a contained nickel basis, we were around $3.60 per pound. On a payable basis, that ends up being about $4.70 a pound. So even when you're looking at where nickel prices are today, it's still a project that would make money. It's a project that will be able to compete with Indonesia, which is dominating the nickel market. And it's one of the very few assets that I think is, right now, even with a tough macro backdrop for nickel, it's one that every investor should be having a look at because it will get developed.
Yeah, there's several points here that I, in particular, want the students at the Rule Classroom to focus on. The first is that with that grade, it's important to note that this is an open pit deposit rather than an underground deposit.
Yep.
Most of the sulfide nickel deposits that have provided us with that metal over time have been deep underground deposits
Correct.
with much higher operating costs. I think the second thing, Darren, that interests me is the relatively low capital expense relative to net present value. The capital expense would seem to be about a third of net present value, which is pretty attractive, particularly given the extraordinarily depressed nickel price that the mining industry is suffering through. That's a wonderful achievement. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. Sorry, you go.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, it is one of the real unique attributes to the project that you can have, and I think it is a function of being a sulfide deposit that is open pittable, that you will have this relatively low capital base, but can still generate very, very strong returns when you've got a cost structure that actually makes sense in the global backdrop. So it's always been one of our key priorities is to demonstrate that we can be in the bottom quartile and compete with Indonesia on cost. And we think that when you look at this asset side by side with any undeveloped nickel sulfide, it's a clear winner by a long margin.
When some investors and speculators think about Brazil, they think about the deepest, darkest Amazon and anacondas and jaguars and stuff like that. Talk to me a little bit about location, geography, infrastructure.
Yeah, look, I mean, we're blessed to be located in the Carajás mineral province, and for those listeners that aren't aware of that, it's it really is like an industrial zone in Brazil. This is an area that Vale's now been working for 40 years. About a month or so back, they've announced a $12 billion investment in their iron ore and copper operations to continue the expansion in the Carajás mineral province. So when you overlay that sort of investment on top of what they've already made, then you've got a very strong position to be in. So you've got high voltage power, you've got rail line, you've got a airstrip to be able to get there, you've got all these towns that have a population base that are now second, third generation mining families that gives you access to labour that are skilled in engineering or they're skilled in geology. So you're not in a remote location where you just have to bring everything in from outside. You've got a ready-made workforce in an environment that has been working mining projects now for over 40 years. So we feel very, as I said, blessed and fortunate that we've got a project that we're able to pick up off Vale. It was probably too small for them to allocate capital to. We think we've done a fantastic job of getting it to the stage that it's at now, and it's really about moving through those next phases of work and bringing it into production.
Let's talk something about that next phase, or those next phases. What do you see as the sort of pathway to the promise over the next year or 2 years?
Yeah, look, the biggest thing is around funding, and we're getting close to being able to make an investment decision. We've got the environmental approvals for the project at hand. The mining lease should be granted in the next couple of months, and with that, then it's about the partnering process, or it's about bringing the debt and equity mix that we need to actually get on and build the project. So it's an exciting time. We'd obviously love to be able to close the gap a little bit between valuation and our market cap, and that's part of the reason why we are pursuing external funding path. Sorry, you go.
This is what one would describe as shovel ready. The
Correct.
Permits
Absolutely.
are, if not in hand, proximal. Now what we're doing is looking for the capital stack. Is that an accurate statement?
Very accurate statement. Yeah.
Well, Darren, it's odd to me that this story isn't better known in North America, frankly. We've used it as a case study in discussions at the Rural Classroom. I hope that our audience at the conference comes to get to know you better. In anticipation of that, Darren, to the extent that there are people watching this interview who would like to learn more about Centaurus, who specifically can they contact, and exactly how can they reach that person?
Yeah, look, I mean, it all stops with me, Rick. Like, if everyone that wants to know about the company can talk to me, and through me they can deal with our other people in our organisation. My email is darren.gordon, DARREN, .GORDON at Centaurus, CENTAURUS.com.au. So don't forget the .au. And that's probably the best forum to be able to get hold of me. If you can't get hold of me, our investor relations coordinator is here in our Perth office, or my PA in our Brazil office can ensure that anyone can get hold of me.
Darren, thank you for decades of hard work in the mining business. Thank you for the wonderful success you're making of Centaurus Minerals. And thank you, too, for your sponsorship and support of the Natural Resources Investment Symposium. I look forward to hosting you in Boca Raton, July 7 through 11.
Yeah, no, look, we're really looking forward to being there again. We found the forum extremely beneficial for the company. And, as to your point, we really do want to continue to expand our reach into those North American markets as we're going through this financing phase.
Well, the North Americans look forward to doing their part with regard to the funding. Thank you again.
Yep. Good on you, Rick. Appreciate it.